Yo, what are you doing?
I told you not to touch me. You have no right to touch me right now. Get the video, bro. What is your name? What is your name?
You have no right to detain me. I'm not under your policy.
You are in our jurisdiction, so we still have the right to.
So could you detain a Japanese guy over there?
Yes, you can.
You can detain a random Japanese citizen for not showing you their ID.
Yes, and then we can pass them over to the Japanese people.
Why, thank you.
Imagine stepping outside the bar late one Saturday night. Air was getting a little stuffy, drinks were starting to hit a little bit, and you just need a little bit of fresh air. Collect yourself. And as you take in that second gulp of wintry night air, somebody decides to scoop you up, slam you on the ground, and demand to know where your ID is. Now, that wasn't exactly the situation I just showed you right there, but it is good enough to illustrate my point of what the fuck were these soldiers thinking? What the fuck was going through the individuals' minds who decided that, hey, they're not complying with what we're saying. It is now within my right to put my hands on this individual and slam them to the pavement. A video that's been viewed millions of times on social media shows a man being thrown to the ground in Okinawa, Japan. Shout out to Okinawa, where one of my little brothers was born. The man is a DC resident who took a trip to the country last week to visit friends. He said in an interview you'll see on News 4. Kareem L shared his account of what happened. I was out in Okinawa visiting friends, having a good time. I found myself on Gate 2 Street. It's around the corner for the Kadena Air Base. 1 minute I was standing outside kind of minding my business. The next minute I was being asked for an ID. Now I want to stop there and clear some things up real quick. And I can only speak from my perspective in South Korea. I don't necessarily know the rules of Japan, but in South Korea there was a curfew. I believe it was 1 or 2 a.m. that you had to be not only back on post, but in your room. If you were found outside of your room, you were subject to UCMJ. But what also people would do is the military police would partner up with the local forces, whether military or law enforcement, and they would patrol the streets. They would go through the nightlife districts, they would go through the bars, they would go through the clubs, and they would basically look for U.S. service members. And if they found you, they would try to ID you. And of course, if they found out that you were in the military, you'd get picked up and taken back to post, where you would again face a lot of effing trouble. I cannot stress this enough. It was a lot of trouble coming your way if you were found breaking curfew. Going back to the article, surveillance video provided by News 4 shows L stepping outside of the bar and being approached by a patrol of U.S. military police about 15 seconds later. They talked for about 5 minutes before L was forced to the ground. After not providing that ID, I found myself being assaulted, being taken to the ground. Shortly thereafter, illegally detained, and then being taken to the parking lot of a military base, where eventually it was noted that I was not in the military and was released. But the events leading up to that were deeply traumatizing. Again, I want to stop right here and go, I can only imagine what the sergeant, what the specialists, what the privates were thinking as they found out that the man we just put hands on, the man that we accosted, the man that we thought was a soldier member so we could just do whatever the fuck we wanted to do, turns out not in the U.S. Armed Forces. The fear that would go through certain individuals' minds as they recognized, oh, we effed up. We had no right to touch this man. We had no right to assault this man. We had no right to interrogate this man. Now, I don't know the exact interaction between Kareem and the U.S. service members. I don't know if he was being antagonistic. I don't know if he was being argumentative, but that doesn't matter. You're going to find individuals who say, yo, if a military police officer asks you for an ID, you just give it to him. No, the fuck you don't. If you are not in the military service, you have no obligation. They have no authority to make you do anything that you don't want to do. You are a U.S. civilian on vacation, free to do whatever the fuck you want to do. This is why individuals get out of the military, to escape the authoritative nature of the military, which has its benefits. There's a reason it is the way it is. But I go back to, nobody should find that this is acceptable behavior from them U.S. service members. If you don't know that that man has a CAT card, if you don't know that that man has raised his right hand and signed up to be a part of the armed forces, you have absolutely no right to engage with him in a violent manner. And that's why I think these individuals really fucked up. And this is why I know they were feeling the fear. Look, I've been not in a similar situation, but I've worn the uniform and I've been a military police officer. And I can only imagine how individuals would react learning we were in the wrong. Not only were we in the wrong, but there is now footage out there of us violently attacking this U.S. civilian. Going back once more to the article, U.S. Forces Japan told News 4 it's common to see these types of patrols near U.S. military facilities in Japan to regulate the conduct of off-duty troops. Let me break that down for those who have not put on the uniform. This is basically U.S. service members have a tendency to act just like U.S. civilians when we go to foreign countries and act a damn fool. Except we've got it times 10 in that we get a bunch of our people. We go out to these local hangouts. We go out to these local bars and we turn the place out. When you think about it, right, these are service members that in a lot of situations are young. These are service members that are being pulled away from their family. These are service members for the first time that are outside the control of their families or their parents. And you put a bunch of them together. You put them in, a training scenarios. You put them in high stress environments. So when their work day is done, of course, they want to go out and let off steam, and they let it off hard. We work hard to play hard. And so a lot of incidents happen. One of the biggest ones is a lot of fights break out between U.S. service members, but also U.S. service members and the local populace. And it gets us in trouble. It hurts foreign relations. So the command structure tries to negate some of that by implementing rules like a curfew, making sure you guys aren't out too late, or having patrols out there to monitor U.S. service members and making sure they're not getting too drunk, too riled up, or doing something that, again, is going to weaken our relationships and make us look bad. Ultimately, we want to make sure, as Captain L said, that this doesn't happen again, and whatever that takes, whatever changes need to occur to ensure that U.S. citizens or any citizens aren't harassed by U.S. military in places like Okinawa, it's very important to us. Should add a final note that L was once in the Marine Corps but left. He was a civilian when he was thrown to the ground. He said military police asked him for his ID was an illegal request and that he told him he was no longer a service member. There's not much more to deep dive. I just really wanted to share this story because I think that it shows something dangerous in the mindset of individuals, in that they see a man who is admittedly a black man out in another country. He was clean shaven, as he reported, and just assume that he had to be armed forces. And not only did they assume it, but after being told, hey, I'm no longer in the service, you still felt it was in your right to put hands on this man because you didn't believe him. And that's disgusting to me. It's disgusting because I want to know, in a similar scenario, had the person been presented white or another denomination, would you have reacted the same way? Was it solely because that this man was clean shaven and black that you thought, well, there's no other way that a black man could be in Japan? There's no other way that a person that looks like him could be anything but a U.S. service member, and thus I am within my right to do whatever is necessary to put hands on this man and get him back to post, even after he has said I am not in the armed services, even after he said I don't have to present an ID to you. And I'm going to be real with you as well. The behavior in general of picking this man up and body slamming him, to me, is also just outside of refusing an ID. Something's wrong with that. I've never seen a scenario where it would be acceptable to do something like this because somebody refused to sign an ID. Now, earlier in the article, we read something about putting hands on or don't touch me again. I don't know if that was the civilian to the U.S. service member, the U.S. service member to the civilian. That is the only way I could see something like that happening. If Kareem put his hands, and I hope I'm saying this man's name right. It's Kareem, right? Yeah, Kareem. I'm sorry, Kareem. If Kareem had put his hands on one of the U.S. service members, then I could see them react in that way. But even in that scenario, I would think more of them would jump on, because what we see in the video is just one sergeant, I believe he was a sergeant, pick the man up and slam him to the ground, and nobody else really running to jump into the fight as well. An overeager sergeant, and there are so many of them who especially go in to be military cops, who get a bolstered sense of ego and think, I am deputy, my shit don't stink. I am the greatest thing on earth, and I can act with impunity towards anybody I deem underneath my authority. And you'll see people do things like bending the laws, not really understanding what they can and cannot do, and justifying it by saying, well, I thought this. In this case, saying, oh, I thought he was in the armed services, so I thought, he was refusing to give his CAT card. I want to make sure he get to a base. I don't understand how body slamming somebody gets you any closer to getting their ID or figuring out if they are U.S. service members. I think there are a lot easier ways to go about identifying somebody's status than slamming them to the ground and forcing them back to a post, because then you find yourself in situations like this where you bet 50-50 and you bet wrong, and now you got to explain to a lot of individuals why you look stupid on camera putting your hands on somebody that is a U.S. civilian. Now you got to explain to a lot of important people why there is a violent video of you assaulting a U.S. citizen, and that's a conversation you just don't want to have. But I am curious, especially for you former military members or people still in the military, former military police officers, what do you think about this video? What would you have done differently? Would you have done the same thing? Do you think that Kareem was in the right in saying, hey, I'm not in the military, I don't have to show you an ID? Do you think the reaction to that was justifiable, body slamming this man to hard concrete, only to find out later that you were absolutely in the wrong? I would love to know your all's thoughts. I was your host, JLW. I will holler at you all later.